Good morning and welcome to Daylight Church Online. We're just so thankful that you're joining us this morning and hope that you have a great experience. We want to let you know that if you'll go to mydaylightchurch.com, there's a card there that says Online Church. And on the Online Church card, it'll tell you everything you need to know about being a part of our online church community, how you can get involved in small groups, how you can give financially, how you can be involved in the service projects that we do. So even if you're in Kansas or Cambodia, you can sure join us and be a part of our church. We'd like you to check it out there and introduce yourself. So go to mydaylightchurch.com and check out the online church card. Thanks. There is no good way to do this. Most of you know at this point, and the sense of mourning in the room speaks a ton about the beautiful life that was and is Cat Smedley. And for those that haven't heard, I hate that this might be how you'd find out, but Cat passed away yesterday morning at 1:16 in the morning. And everything feels inappropriate. Just standing in front of you feels inappropriate. I sat down this morning to review what I had written about a sermon and just scratched it all. Just nothing feels right. So Cat would love this, but the room smells like bacon right now, and that doesn't feel right. I think she would believe bacon makes everything better, but not today. She fought a long battle with cancer, and even knowing what details to share, or her desire would be that there was no memorial, and I'll talk about that in a minute. So even standing up and talking about her, there's this question of, am I betraying her? And I kind of say to heck with that. I'm going to betray her, and we're going to talk about her briefly at least, or take the whole service to do so. But about, I don't know the days exactly, she'd been fighting a distended stomach where her belly was filling with fluids and they were draining it regularly, and she was getting ready to go to the hospital when she passed out. And they took her to the hospital immediately, and she was submitted to the ICU and remained there for 8 or 10 days, it seems like to me. I might have those dates wrong. But her blood pressure was bottoming out, and they had medication on her to keep that from happening, which was, it sounds like, just basically life support. That her blood pressure was diving so low that it didn't look good, but they were using medication to keep it elevated. And ultimately, she made the decision that she would go off the medicine, that she would discontinue all medication and intervention, and that was her choice. And she had time. There's no way to glamorize death. There's no way to spin a yarn where it sounds good. But if you could go peacefully, it's about as peaceful a story as you'd ever hear. She had time to call her family and gather them around her bed. And she was coherent and sharp as always. I got to speak with her on the phone, I believe Friday. And she said, I tried. And then she called a family meeting, and I don't know the details of that meeting except that Ernie said it was one of the hardest nights of his life, if not the hardest night of his life. And again, I don't know what details to share, except that when she passed, Ernie was sitting next to her and holding her hand. She was not conscious at that time. She had chosen to take some pain medication on advice from her doctors and her sister, who had seen similar situations. So when I texted him late in the evening, Friday night, he said, she's sleeping deeply. And then I got a text the next morning saying she went away at 1:16 a.m. And so I don't know what to do today. Noah and Gabby are with us, and Ernie is here. I don't know if he's in the room right now, but he came. And it just sucks. And she didn't want a memorial, which is just like her. I mean, it's so much like her. Cat came into my life shortly after Daylight launched in 2013. So I've known her approximately 10 years, her and Ernie, the family. And she was vibrant and alive and beautiful and fun and wonderful. And she would find jobs to do that kind of nobody else wanted to do. They mowed the lawn here once we acquired Progress Boulevard. For many years, one of the worst jobs at the theater was loading and unloading the trailer. We had to bring in all our gear, all our sound gear, all the kids' ministry stuff. We had a trailer packed full of stuff, and there's still pictures on the cork board in the kids' room that she wrote, or that she took, organizing that whole system. And she and Ernie were basically in charge of making sure all the tear got done, and we got out of the theater in time. And it was a horrible job. And it's one of those things that as a church planner, they tell you, this is going to get old really fast. And it did get old really fast, except that Cat and Ernie stepped up and did it. And I was able to make the rounds and communicate with people and relax at the end of services because they did the literal heavy lifting. And then she got sick. And for about a year was somewhat out of commission and couldn't do that job anymore. And when our volunteer banquet came around in Christmas time, and some of you have heard this story, came around at Christmas time, she didn't show up. And when I asked her why, she said, I didn't think I volunteered enough that year. Which is exactly the same sentiment behind, I don't want to have a memorial service. She was very humble. She didn't want to draw attention to herself. She didn't want accolades or to impress people. She just wanted to love and to serve. And even, it's such a weird thing, death and memorializing people and remembering people. And like we laugh at the story and then we wonder if that's appropriate for a time of mourning. And I think, so Gabby told me this morning that she's in a better place, and I believe that. And I think she would want that to be our focus, which doesn't at all minimize the mourning. And like I mentioned earlier, the room is subdued. The room is hurting. There's a lot of tears. And it's because we love this woman so much. Because she left a mark on our lives. But you guys know me, at least most of you do at this point, and how my brain spins. And I got to thinking last night, like in the face of death, what is ever appropriate? Like, I had this sermon all prepared about health and physical health, which felt deeply, deeply inappropriate when I looked over it. But in it, the famous comedian and communicator, entertainer, Russell Brand, who was an atheist and a self-proclaimed heroin addict, has come to faith. And he was married to Katy Perry, and they divorced, and through the trauma of that divorce and through him getting 12-step help, for his addiction. He's come to faith. He says things like, "I'm closer to Jesus than I ever was," and things like that. And he was a very outspoken, I don't want to say antagonist to Christians, but very outspoken in his atheism. And now people write into him for advice because I think some are viewing him as like a spiritual guru or like a guy who's been enlightened, something like that. And admittedly, I don't know a lot about his new faith and where it's at, but one person wrote into him and said, "I'm haunted by this obsession with slowing down the deterioration of my body." It was a young lady in her 30s that said, I can't get over this fact that my body is going down, that I'm aging and it's hard and I don't like it, and getting old stinks, and I'm hurting in places that I didn't hurt before, and I know the end is on its way. What do I do with this information? And I thought Russell Brand's response was pretty beautiful. He said, "You need to find God." And that sounds so simple, but coming from him and coming from where he's come from, it's such an amazing statement. But I heard him at one point talk about how every person that shoots up is looking for God. Every John that visits a prostitute or a brothel is looking for God, that we're trying to find this thing that's transcendent while our bodies decay. And he was saying that's what you've got to get a hold of. And for some reason, I've been thinking about that in relation to Cat and her passing and being in a better place. If you would grab your phones and open up your Bibles to 1 Thessalonians 4:13 with me. Because Cat had found that. I think I'm nobody's judge. Somebody texted me and asked if assuming Cat is in a better place puts you on the throne of Christ, and I don't know the answer to that. But I believe God is good, and I believe Cat had found that good God through Jesus. And so when I read 1 Thessalonians 4:13, it says, "We do not want you to be uninformed, brothers, about those who are asleep, that you may not grieve as others do, who have no hope." I think it's really interesting here that in the context, it's very clear that they're talking about people who have died, people who have passed on. And it describes them as people who sleep. Why the difference, you think? Because you expect a sleeping person to do what? To wake up. Cat is not done. We're not done in our relationship with Cat. It says, "You may not grieve as others who do not have any hope." Christianity has historically been and always will be a faith based around resurrection, based around the dead don't stay dead. The dead live. Death is lost. There is no victory in death. It's done. And so this word hope pops up a lot. I was reminded of a passage that has helped me so many times in my life. It's in Romans 5, verses 3 through 5. It says, "But not only so, but we glory in our sufferings, because we know that suffering produces perseverance. Perseverance, character, and character, hope. And hope does not put us to shame, because God's love has been poured out into our hearts through the Holy Spirit who has been given to us." There's this passage in 1 Corinthians 13, which is known as the love passage or the wedding passage. It talks about love, and it concludes with this statement. It says, now there's three things that remain. It says there is faith, there's hope, and there's love. It says, but the greatest of these is love. I wonder things like, well, what's wrong with hope and faith? Like, why is love elevated? And that's next week's sermon. We'll talk about that at another time. Except to say that hope requires pain. Hope requires disappointment. Hope requires suffering. What is the meaning of hope without those things? Hope only exists in a shadowy place. And that's where we find ourselves now. There's no way to get, even Paul, that was beautiful. Thank you for leading us in music this morning. Don't you think a full band with hoorah lyrics would have felt just wrong? And so I want us to understand that it's beyond perfectly acceptable. It's extremely healthy to sit in the pain. Even I don't know how the spirit world works. I don't know, is Cat with us today? Can she hear my words? I don't know all that. But I've seen a lot of hugs going on in here today. A lot of shared tears. A lot of mutual suffering, a lot of carrying one another's burdens. And I think that would make her happy. And it's intimately related with love. Hope is. Love is almost the end game of hope. I was talking with a friend recently about life and what it means to love and how to sort out the complexities that if I'm loving one person, I'm neglecting another. If I invest in one area of my life to build my character, I'm not investing in someone else's life to help build their character and so forth. And it's very complex and very difficult to parse out. If you want to be a person who takes the great commandment seriously to love one another as you love yourself, it comes with complexities. It comes with difficulties. And the person gave me great advice. They said, I just do my best to add value to every person I come in contact with. And I said, well, define add value. What does that mean? And they went on to explain that. And I don't need to get into that too deeply into that conversation, except to say that Cat was a person who did that. I want to be Cat on Judgment Day. Cat was a person who loved and loved well. She loved her family so deeply. She loved her children. She loved her church. She loved you guys. The pain that we're feeling today is there's a direct correlation between her level of love and how she added value to our lives and the cutting off of that. It's because she loved so well that we hurt so badly. If she was a total schmuck that didn't treat people well, this room wouldn't feel so heavy. She loved well. I've been reading on Facebook people's memories of Cat, and specifically Chris Booker. And I know that you guys mix it up in here. I know that when we serve BLTs in a little while, people will get together that I don't know that those relationships are being built. I really didn't know that Cat and Booker had any kind of meaningful relationship, and specifically because Booker is in the sound booth and pretty busy on Sunday mornings, and so. But he posted about a time when he needed to fly somewhere, and Cat basically said, I'm driving you to the airport. And he said, but I'm leaving from Cincinnati. She said, I know. And then he fought with her about picking him up, and she just was adamant. She was stubborn. She said, I am picking you up. She had kids to get to school the next day. She had lots going on. But she met him at the gate at like 10 o'clock at night, 10:30 at night, to pick him up from the Cincinnati airport. Drove him home, but instead of being in a hurry to get him home, she stopped and treated him up to Waffle House, which also sounds just like Cat. And I'm hearing stories that the behind-the-scenes stories that you are not normally privy to, we get to hear now. Some of our friends are talking about what a special lady she was and how you could show up at her house and be inundated with gifts and encouragement. Ernie said the nurses said things like, I don't ever say this, but she's my favorite patient I've ever had. They said things like, normally a person in her situation is very bitter, very angry, but she was a joy through the whole process. I worked with Cat on my side hustle. Some of you don't know this, I deliver environmental samples for an environmental testing lab in Memphis once or twice a week, and Cat was my backup. So if I was out of town or I didn't feel like making a run, Cat and Ashley Tilton was the backup to the backup and is now my backup. But everybody on my team, my boss, person directly above me, the people I work with on the level, everybody has been checking in. How is Cat doing? And I had to text them and give them the bad news, and they're all just brokenhearted. And they've met her maybe 5 times, twice in some situations, and they're talking about what a lovely, vibrant, loving person she was. She was just and is just a joy. And you could go through the Facebook list for a while and tell many, many stories. So then my wife and I are laying in bed last night talking about Cat, and I hope this is okay to share. Kara shares with me. She says, I wonder what people would say about me. Like she says, so many people are talking about what a joy Cat was, and it's challenging to me when I look at that definition of love, that definition of what hope turns into, of adding value to the people I come in contact with. Cat's life now challenges me in that she brought value to every person she came in contact with. And again, we're not defining value. She brought joy. She brought happiness. She encouraged thriving. She checked in with people. She was kind and compassionate. And that's a legacy that I hope we won't forget. I hope all of us will lay in bed thinking, what? Not a shame-based thing. And that's not the conversation I was having with my wife. It wasn't, well, people wouldn't say that about me. But it was, I'm being challenged here. And I pray that Cat's life and legacy will challenge me. I know Ernie carries it with him. Ernie is the same. He brings value to the people he comes in contact with. I pray that her children will carry that legacy of kindness, compassion, humility, care. So, a lot of people are asking, what can I do? And honestly, the answer is a little bit, I don't know. In asking Ernie is a lot like Cat in the sense of, oh, that's okay. People are asking, where can I give money to help with the arrangements? And so, practically, we're going to pray, and we're going to pray together in just a moment. We've set up a fund that you can access online to give to. It just says Cat Smedley Fund. It's helping them with this difficult transition. My heart breaks for Ernie and for the kids. It feels inappropriate to make any comparison, but the thought that's in my head, so just forgive me if this is wrong. The thought that's in my head is, I don't know what I would do if Kara died. Just even, not just emotionally, but logistically. I know Cat took care of so much stuff. Ernie has shared that with me. I have to imagine that I can't speak for Ernie, but I can speak for myself. I would feel so lost. I would feel helpless to a certain extent. Things that Cat took care of now fall into Ernie's lap. And it's not going to be easy. And it's going to be a long road. And so anything we can do to help, and again, I'm painting broad strokes here. I don't know specifics, but I have some thoughts. One is giving financially. That will help with this transition. And so if you'd like to give financially, there's another church in town called The River that's also set up a fund. But you can go to daylightchurch.com/giving and just use the drag down menu there, and it just says Cat Smedley Fund. Anything you'd like to give towards this transition would ease their burdens and make life a little bit more simple for them would be very much appreciated. The church will be donating. Kara and I will be personally donating. So that's one thought. I believe in prayer. Like I said, we're going to pray communally in just a moment. But continue to lift that family up in prayer. And then, again, everything feels so insufficient. But the Daylight Cares team will brainstorm ways that we can help in other practical ways. I remember when my father died when I was 9 years old. The men at my church, they would have a father-son banquet every year. And many men would reach out and say, "Can I take your son to the father-son banquet?" And Ernie's not the only one hurting. Her 4 children, Adam and Seth and Noah and Gabby, are hurting as well. And so we will communally brainstorm. When we come together as a Daylight Cares team, we will talk about ways that we can help. Hopefully we will do that with Ernie's ear, and we will know better how to help over time. But think about it. Think about what you can do. Ask God, what could I do to help this family? I know right now the River Church, where the Smedleys once attended, is preparing meals for them that will probably cover them for at least a short period of time. I heard a ministry leader one time talk about mourning and death and people passing and the mourning period and how long it lasts and the different stages that you can expect. And they said, one of the most difficult parts of mourning is that at the beginning of the mourning process, you have a huge community reaching out to help. People are preparing meals. People are taking up offerings. People are showing up, giving rides, mowing your lawn. That lasts about 2 to 3 weeks. And then all of a sudden you find yourself sort of lonely, sort of empty, as if that thing has passed and you have not passed on. It's a long period mourning. The deepest pit of mourning can last a year. It can last 10 years. And so I hope and pray that Daylight Church will be a community that this time next year we're thinking, how can we help? That we're keeping our finger on the pulse where the family is concerned, and that it won't just be a blast of help that comes at the beginning and then it's life as normal, because life will not be normal for this family for quite some time. So keep that in mind as the months go by. The mourning has not ended. The logistical concerns have not begun to end, and see what you can do over time. If you would turn to Psalm 6 with me. I'm going to read from verse 2 to verse 9. I was talking with a friend this week, actually, that talked about, this was a husband and father, and they talked about difficulty. How can I express this? Comparing themselves to the mighty men of valor of the Old Testament, and feeling like when difficulties come, victory. When trials come, I should rise above them. In some sense, it was I ought to be a better man. And there's a place for that in our lives. There's a place for that idea that Jesus has conquered death and that onward Christian soldiers type mentality. But there's also a place for deep, relentless despair. There's a place for that in the kingdom of God. That's the place that hope shines brightest. And I want to say to us as we mourn, and I want to say to Ernie and the family as you mourn, that it's absolutely okay not to be okay. That you don't have to fix it. You don't have to conquer it or beat it. You'll be better served feeling it, lying in it, and asking for help. Psalm 6 says this, "Be gracious to me, O Lord, for I am languishing. Heal me, O Lord, for my bones are troubled. My soul also is greatly troubled, but you, O Lord, how long? Turn, O Lord, deliver me, deliver my life. Save me for the sake of your steadfast love. For in death there is no remembrance of you. In Sheol, who will give you praise?" It says, "I am weary with my moaning. Every night I flood my bed with tears. I drench my couch with my weeping. My eye wastes away because of grief. It grows weak because of all my foes. Depart from me, all you workers of evil, for the Lord has heard the sound of my weeping. The Lord has heard my plea. The Lord accepts my prayer." As we mourn, I want to emphasize the absolute appropriateness of doing so. It's okay not to be okay. The victory that Jesus won is not a victory that we won. It's a victory handed down. And in some sense, finding your place in a place of despair, finding your place in a place where your bones are weary and you flood your pillow with tears is, again, it feels inappropriate to even say, it can be one of the best places you'll ever find yourself. Because God will meet you there. Russell Brand was correct. We give up on trying to grasp. We give up on trying to hold and win and experience victory through our own cognitive abilities, through our own strength. And we reach out to a God who says, "I got this. I will do it."